He's ready to what? Be done with the budget? I still didn't hear you.
Nothing like a good thing.
No, it's working, right?
What's this software?
It doesn't do you much good.
How do I go 12 days without catching up? Those young people, they say they don't watch this anymore.
They have the Apple Watch, so it's all synced.
Right.
I just text John. So no answer yet. It's up to you. It's up to you guys. You're 3 minutes in. What are we starting with?
Gas.
Gas.
What is it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we swapped
We did
gas for wastewater and wastewater.
water, wastewater. We're gas,
Gas.
stormwater, airport.
Gas is easy.
Are you asking me to start the meeting or wait? He didn't respond?
Start the meeting.
Let's start.
I think your cohorts will start.
Do I move?
You guys want to start? Yeah. Yep, go.
Okay, let me call the meeting to order. Budget workshop, July 13th, 2021. Stand for the invocation. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your many blessings. We pray that you continue to bless this community, this great city, guide and direct this commission as we work through our budget process to make our city better. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Al.
All right, off we go. This evening, gas, stormwater, and the airport to finish off the enterprise funds. Then we jump into our pension funds, police, fire, general, and then our internal service funds, and we'll go from there. So with gas, I kind of wanted to jump right back. Their fund balance is actually starting to come back a little bit, so those are good numbers. Gas has really been set up the last few years that generates nice reserve monies that we have transferred for specific capital purposes. In the last couple of years, we've used those revenues to expand the system in the villages in our South Sumter Gas Villages Agreement that then got challenged, and so we spent some money on that in terms of legal fees and system expansions, but we're already starting to see that money return. So those are nice investments, and the system's really just starting to grow. So having said that, one of the issues, though, that I talked about last week with regard to the general fund was using those gas monies to help offset the general fund and the electric fund to keep everything moving. And being that our gas rate had significant decreases and we had used significant capital to expand it, we really thought there was room to have a gas increase for what we call our native customers, which is basically our residential customers. So we talked about that a little bit. We were far below market. We wanted to have a little bit of equalization between ourselves and the TICO rate. That the proposed increase would bring about $500,000 additional for the general fund. We helped that $500,000 to the general fund helped us lower the electric transfer, and then we wanted to look at it as taxes start to grow. Then that transfer of the additional cash can lower and stay in the gas fund. And we talked about considering a 2-year increase in the residential rate from 865 base rate to 1338, and then wait and see for fiscal year 23 whether we would want to go to the next step, which would be about $13 to $8 on the customer charge, which is a monthly rate. On the chart, obviously our residential rate we thought looked very comparable. The commission asked for what we look like. That always looks really good at my desk. But the commission asked for what we look like on the commercial side. The commercial side is extremely hard to compare, is our formal answer. Like the residential rate, the commercial rate's made up of a customer charge, which is your typical monthly charge. Then you have your use charge and your transportation charge. The transportation charge, just like us, fluctuates. We are kind of an oddball in the gas commercial rates because we have one gas commercial rate, and that rate, I can't even read it, it's $12.99. So on the commercial side, we would suggest that if you increase that base rate, it's going to be the same for commercial and gas. Obviously it's going to be the same for commercial and residential. Obviously, for the residential, it was a little bit bigger, around the $460 a month rate. In gas, it would only be about 40 cents. So we're really looking to target the residential rate and not the commercial rate.
So on the commercial rate, and maybe it's not for this year, but for next year, because I imagine it's quite a project. But why wouldn't we look at basically mirroring TICO's rate structure on the commercial side and then like discounting by 10% or something? So, it's clearly cheaper, but that seems like that would be a significant increase in revenues for us if we were to do so.
The other side of this chart, that's a really a longer term, harder examination of commercial rates.
Yep.
And commercial does get a little bit tricky, especially with TICO, because they have different incentives that are on the commercial rate that aren't on the residential rate. And so essentially in the investor-owned world, they kind of bear the burden on their residential rate and roll back their commercial rate. So you can see us being super competitive residential, but not as competitive commercial, where publicly owned utilities are inverse. Kind of we bear the burden on the residential rate or on the commercial rate, and we're a little bit easier on the residential rate. So that's a scenario we want to watch. In our specific case, we feel like we've got the room on the residential side, especially since we created the villages rate. And so we want to get a little bit more competition in our own rate as well between the native load and the villages rate, so that we don't have such a disparity between those two rates.
Okay. Well, in that case, then I would still like to see it for next year. That might mean that our commercial rates need to go down too. But I think we need to be competitive one way or another on both rates, however that shakes out.
Agreed.
Are you saying, Al, that the village rates are going to be cheaper than the rest of the citizens?
No, the village rate is more expensive.
Okay. And just to recap from, I think it was last Tuesday, why are we proposing to raise the base rate on gas? What's the need for it?
Collect capital that we expended in the villages deal to get a little more competition between us and TICO, so we're a little closer to TICO, so we can earn a couple of more dollars, and to change some of the disparity between the TICO rate and the native residential Leesburg rate.
Okay.
And to give us more money for the general fund.
And give us more money for
I mean,
the
that's
general.
it's, it was coming from the electric fund.
Yeah,
kind of.
we got the
Yeah,
circle
kind of,
in there.
yeah.
But yes, more money for the general fund without increasing taxes, but then being able to offset on the franchise fee side by lowering franchise fees in the electric, or the transfer on the electric side.
On the gas revenue, what's the breakdown commercial versus residential? I mean, I'm guessing residential is 75, 80%.
I would agree with that. Yes.
A little more on the commercial side, a little higher during the summer. In the wintertime, they're the same because the residential comes up in the usage. So yeah.
Okay, okay.
50 in the winter, heavier on the residential in the summer.
Okay, thank you.
So those are our rate concepts, and then as far as expense side, you know, I don't want to keep beating the same horse, but our expenditures look pretty similar. Purchases up, obviously that's due to volume and growth. Most of that growth is associated with the villages coming on board in those estimates, and everything else really is pretty much the same. And then capital. You know, we focus on meter change out, main changes out, those really kind of just system improvements. So like we talked about with electric, water, sewer, gas capital mimics the same. So that's really our overview of the gas system. Any questions?
What's the temporary labor in the admin division?
We are assuming that we will hire a director and that Jack would still be here for a little bit of the time. So Jack would move to a temporary slot with the new
okay.
director. So that'll go away next year.
Unless Jack
and-
wants to reconsider, and then we could not.
Yeah,
have a
and with
temporary
that, I think probably everybody knows, but Jack submitted his resignation back in May, and he caught significant flack from the city manager about his resignation, and so we've been obviously looking for his replacement since. So, submitted his retirement.
And then-
That's effective November.
And what was the contract services? It's under capitals.
Contract services, we have a number of those. One of them is for
For what? Odorization.
Okay.
That odor is it, you got it?
The detail on it is the 470 tunnel relocate for 124,000, and then the Macleay 6-inch extension, 78,000.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And the Macleay, we're getting, that's one we're getting some customer contribution on.
You'll get customer contribution on both, so you'll
Both
see
those,
it on the
yeah.
revenue side reimburse us. So it should show up on both.
And I assume we're waiting on that lawsuit to be resolved before we actually spend the money.
Yeah, I just actually, Fred just sent us an update that the second dispute, if you will, was denied, but they didn't stop it. So that we anticipate that that will get refiled a third time. And then once that's refiled a third time, I think Fred is in the position where they're going to file for a summary judgment. So to be continued.
You're referring to Macleay?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, there was a resident from Highland Lakes who filed suit. The second refiling was denied based on standing, but the judge still allowed for them to refile. So we'll anticipate they do refile. When they do, our position will then be to request for a summary judgment. So instead of going to trial, we'll ask for the quick opinions to just, hey, judge, make this opinion and see where they go.
I got nervous there. I thought the Tico lawsuit kind of was,
No,
was
no.
coming back.
Different topic. Yeah, different topic. No. So, barring any other questions on gas, Commissioner Burr, I see you, that he was reaching for the mouse, so, okay. So we'll move over to stormwater. Stormwater, again, kind of continues to trug along. The quick debrief on that is there's not really anything significant in there to discuss. Lake Robin Hood probably being these projects here, Lake Hollywood design, the Canal Street project, and the Lake Robin Hood improvements, really. And we did, I think machine harvesting is a little bit of a new line to kind of keep up with some of the canals and that kind of thing in stormwater. So, okay, so we'll keep going. So airport rounds out our last enterprise funds. Their cash remains pretty stable here for the last couple of years, around $3 million. That injection from that $1 million level to the $3 million level is really indicative of the land sale, the property that the airport owned across the street next to the dog park that Jenkins bought. I want to say that was a $2.2 million sale. So that money went into reserves and has remained there. Their operations remain in that $3 million mark. Mostly the same type of issues. Their revenue side, we bring in about $715,000 in revenue from the different leaseholds that we have, the air side and non-air side. And and then the capital, we're talking about roof replacement for the T-hangers on Echo Drive, and then the other improvements. And these are the ones that are programmed with FDOT as well as FAA. Kind of the fuel farm replacement project now is the next in the hopper, and then develop the wildlife hazard assessment program and purchase of the tractor.
What's the tractor for?
Upgrade the tractor for mowing at the airport.
Oh, okay. I don't remember the specifics. The first one was very controversial when you bought it. That was before I was on the commission, but I remember sitting in here. I
first
think there was like a
tractor you bought
30-minute
out there?
discussion on that tractor, so.
Was that during my time?
No, that's
Okay.
for you, but, okay, so we just need, this is for mowing the airport though, that's
Yep.
right, yeah, okay. And then we're gonna have a workshop to talk about kind of more long-range planning, how we maybe get some more growth at the airport.
We can absolutely do that. Let me see kind of where the schedule falls. We'll try to shoot for either a regular meeting where your load kind of lightens up, or we'll schedule a special meeting sometime. We will try to squeeze it in this month or next month.
Okay, because I know, I don't think it was at one of our meetings. I think it was an airport meeting that that Tracy spoke about. There's a way to realign some stuff so we can add more hangars. And so I'd like us to all get up to speed. I'm certainly not, other than just like there's just the concept out there and how that would look, timeline, what we can do. Because from obviously we just had the hangar discussion, but then talking to some more people out there, it seems like there is a lot of demand for the commercial hangars. Maybe I'm not sure exactly what, maybe not what we have now, but smaller even, and just really get a handle on that and let everyone know out there how we're going to move forward.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I thought we were going to talk about it more tonight, but if we're going to do a workshop, that's fine. That's probably better.
Okay.
Al, I have a couple questions. The 95,000 that was approved in this fiscal we're in now, what, for machinery and equipment, what was that for?
This fiscal year?
Yes, sir.
Having to fix it. And we didn't spend that. What's the other portion? So 95 grand this year, 75 of it was anticipated repairs on the Skybolt hangar. We were trying to anticipate that if that lease was not renewed, we would be left with the repairs for that AC unit. We came to an agreement with Skybolt, so we didn't have to repair the AC unit. We were able to pass that to Skybolt, so that 75 won't be spent. So that'll be reflected in the actual budget when we close out the fiscal year. The remaining 20, whatever the math is, about 20 grand was on miscellaneous equipment at the tower, which was grant funded.
And the tractor we have a tractor now, right?
Yes, you want to tackle that one, Tracy? She can give you the details on the tractor issues.
Good evening. All right, the current tractor that we have was purchased in November of 2015. The cost was $35,800. We traded in the one that you're talking about that was controversial because it was really more for like a golf course mowing, a finishing mower. It couldn't handle anything on the airfield. So after the trade-in, the tractor that we currently have cost $15,300. The one that we're proposing is not only going to help us with productivity and being able to get more areas, it's going to have like the buoyant tires so that some of the areas that traditionally remain wet year-round, we'll be able to get closer and closer to getting all of that taken care of. And Fleet anticipates that we should expect about $20,000 for our current trade-in.
So that would be 20,000 trade-in plus the 65?
No. 65 was the number that Fleet threw at me, saying that we should budget about that. The prices are kind of all over the map. So we're hoping that it's not quite that much, but we also need to be able to make sure that whatever we do purchase, we can retrofit the bush hog that we currently have because it's sufficient in size. And we also purchased a bucket for use out there as well. So we want to make sure that those two attachments will fit onto the next purchase.
Okay, so the tractor we have now is only 6 years old?
Correct. We bought it November of 2015.
And it's just not doing the job no more?
Well, it gets stuck frequently because it doesn't have the big buoyant tires. It's not, I thought I wrote down the horsepower, but I want to say it's 70 PTO, but I think that translates to 50 horsepower. And so the suggestion is to upgrade that, bigger tires, get into more areas of the airfield that are not accessible.
Can we put bigger tires on our existing one instead?
I'd have to defer to fleet.
I think we're just looking to just get a better piece of equipment and trade in what we have. That's bottom line.
How much grass is out there? The
About
cut?
200 acres.
About 200 acres?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, 200 acres, plus or minus. Okay. So we'll work on putting together that workshop and we'll get back to you. The next, so that rounds out all our enterprise funds. So we move into the pension funds. There's 3 of them. They all are, they're all performing reasonable. The rule of thumb is you want to have a pension that's 80% funded. So all our pension funds are above that. Police is at 90%, fire is at 86, general is at 94. I wouldn't recommend it funding below 80, and I wouldn't recommend funding at 100. I would, those are good numbers and about right where they should be. So to break that down, police pension fund, you put about $1.9 million into that between your 3 primary revenue sources. One is the state. So the state is the insurance premium tax. So when you pay your cell phone tax bill, there's a tax that goes to the state on that that gets split up and then sent back to the governing jurisdictions based on a bunch of different formulas. That money is specifically state statute earmarked for police pensions. Then we have our employee contribution and your employer contribution, and we monitor that pretty regularly through our actuarial reports. This year, the contribution percentage is down just a tick, hardly enough to mention. Last year was 11.28% of salaries. This year, we're about 11.3%. You don't see an increase or a decrease in the contribution, though, to represent that because it's so small and because it's not offset by the increase in salary expenditures. So it's not as big as it could be, but it's a little bit of an increase, even though the percentage came down. Fire looks, and there's your charts. Fire looks similar. Again, same funding sources, insurance premiums, employee contributions, and then the employer contribution. And in this time, the state insurance premium is housing insurance. Your homeowner's insurance has the line that's earmarked for fire and emergency service. Pension plans, again, their number came down a little bit, to 33% to 31.7%, but again, that 1% doesn't translate into a total decrease because of salary increases. So that fund continues to chug along, and again, well-funded. I would mention to you as well that, and the pension funds, the police being funded around the 11% number for its benefits. I think on a statewide level for the members, the benefit level probably satisfactory, minimally satisfactory when you compare the factor and COLAs and different benefits that go into the pension. So your contribution at 11%, probably statewide, is competitive for us. On the pension side, the benefits probably, on the fire side, the benefits probably a little more right down the middle, and the contribution level of 31%, even though it's, significantly bigger than the police fund, that number is still probably on a statewide level lower than, it's probably, it's actually a good number. Then the third fund that we have is the General Employees Fund, which was frozen in '08. So we still have to fund that because we still have current employees who are in it. We have former employees who still draw from it. So we can't completely close out that fund yet. Again, the same kind of story there, 13% down to 11.9, so just about a % decrease, but that one went up a little bit too. That one more based on usage and then money coming out than in. So that was a broad brush of all three, so questions?
Yeah, on the general employees, I saw last year that the rate of return was just under 4%, and I'm assuming that's because we're kind of in like payout mode because we don't have any new employees going in, and maybe they're having to hold a lot of cash or something. But could you get a breakdown of what they're holding and last year and what they did, because that just seems awfully low last year.
Yes, I'll get you a breakdown of those investments and where we're at on that.
Okay, thanks.
Just trying to learn something. Why is the fire pension so much higher than the police? I mean, our contribution in 31% versus 11. I would have.
His arguments are
A big reason is we've been contributing 3% to the fire for a long time, and we went from 2 to 3 on the police.
Yeah, there's three factors in that. The fire fund has been in existence longer. The police, I want to say up until 2001, 2, were actually in the General Employees Fund. So we broke them out and put them in their own retirement fund then. So the pension fund has been there, and their benefits are a little bit richer.
Okay, I get it now. Thank you.
So those are the three funds. Everybody since October 1 has been in the deferred comp plan, so you guys know that. So 5% of salary goes into an individual deferred comp plan that we manage through Embark now, not Mass Mutual. Internal service funds. So we're going to start out with the big issue of the evening. So the budget, I think, process has been relatively, I think, easy this year, and mostly good news. If there is a troubled fund, it's the health insurance fund. And the health insurance fund, remember, we are a self-insured group. We have about 490 employees and retirees. I'll break those numbers down for you in more detail. When the special number, 250 or so employees, is when you start looking at a disadvantage of being totally self-insured versus having traditional insurance. So we've looked at a number of different avenues of, is the healthcare clinic working for us? Should we go back to being a traditionally insured group? And those answers are, and they probably have some places that we can improve to continue to encourage people at the healthcare clinic. So we're still going to recommend that the healthcare clinic is working for us significantly. I think COVID hurt it a little bit. One of the moves that we are making is going to a complete bid on the provider there. So in fact, today we just sent WeCare their notice that effective at the end of their contract, which is December 7th of this year, their contract will be terminated, and we're going to start a bid process to review that service provider at the healthcare clinic. So come December 8th, we'll either have a new provider or WeCare will come back and provide a competitive bid. We've talked with WeCare. They're under the gun. I don't have a report on that as of probably a couple of weeks ago, but we're really focusing on continuing that if we get that service to where more folks continue to get back to the healthcare clinic since COVID. That will help us control costs. But then the other side, really where we see our exposure and our cost increases our claims. So this graph is our claims costs only that we pay out. So the premiums that we collect, plus some other miscellaneous revenue, plus paying our insurance bill and our claims bills. Our claims are on the rise, and they're on the rise significantly, especially the last 3 years. So since 2012, we've gone from just a little bit under 5 million to this year is an estimated 8 million. We're not sure that's going to come in there yet, but we think that that's a reasonable cost estimate for finishing off the fiscal year. And at that number, a number causes significant concern to us. So we've had this concern now for the last couple of years, and we've kicked the can as far as changing the program a little bit as far as collections and trying to shift some monies around. And this chart is our reserve balance in the healthcare or the health claim fund. And essentially, we are now to the, let me just, these numbers hard for the audience to see, but essentially we're going from, let me get them where I can see them. Essentially, a little more downs than ups, but we peaked out around having a cash reserve of about 3.8 million in fiscal year 14. That steadily decreased to fiscal year 18 at 1.6. We start to sweat, then things got a little bit better. I think Commissioner Roebuck continued to yell at us. And then as of fiscal year 20, we ended about 2.1 million. So the blue line again represents where we want our reserve to be. The reserve industry standard 60 days. In the healthcare fund, we like our recommendation to you is 75 days. So in each of our GFOA things, we're beating what the standards are, and I think that's a good rule of thumb to keep. But bottom line is, when we get to the end of this year, we definitely think we're going to see a significant drop of this $2 million, of about a $1.2 million shortfall. And the shortfall is relative to where we think the reserve should be. Now, let me end it there and talk about why this happened, and then we've got recommendations for you on how we think you need to go about fixing it. So the insured data brief. Essentially, we have, for fiscal year, this will be fiscal year 21 data. And even though the fiscal year 22 budget goes up to about 501 employees, the numbers stay the same. And in the healthcare pool, they're kind of always in flux too. So as I give you these numbers and these analyses, they're good analysis based on the trends, but the numbers aren't going to be exactly perfect because of when proceed money comes in, and every month, we have an influx of employees of a handful, retirements or new hires or vacancies or whatever. So these numbers don't totally correspond with full-time employee numbers, but we refer to that. So just keep that in mind if we get discrepancy in numbers. So having said that, let me cut to the chase. Fiscal year 21, we have about 1,022 people who are in our group. The eligible group is full-time employees and their dependents, if they have them. That makes up for about 911 people. And retirees and their dependents, that's 111 people. Mind you, that 111 is one of those magic numbers. Whether we have people that fall off and go out of that group because they get off the plan as retirees because either they pass or they switch totally to Medicare. We've got a retiree group coming in, and that number always seems to stay about 110 under your current plan. Under your current plan, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Again, we project our health care costs in fiscal year 21 to be $8 million. Our biggest exposure is 44% of all our claims are coming from about 3 to 5 claims in our retirement group. So unfortunately, our retiree group wags the tail wags the dog here, where a minority group is really a majority of our costs. That's an exposure. That's an exposure where the history, where we're going to show you here in a minute, continues to build, and we really need to focus. And even mitigating that exposure is not going to stop the loss, but it puts us in a better position because our trend over the past 3 years is bad. So we're going to get into that here in a second. Because, back to this slide, this gap is so big, we need to stop that bleeding this fiscal year. So I'm going to ask you to give me discretion as the city manager. Did I get ahead of myself? I'm going to ask discretion for you to, I think I jumped to the next slide there. So let me go jump to this slide and then come back and finish off the other slide. I'm going to ask you for discretion to transfer $1.2 million. That $1.2 million will shore up the health insurance fund, or I'm going to ask you for $1.74 million. That's going to shore up the fund, and then I'm going to take it from these areas. Number one is work comp. That leaves $750,000 to spread across our operating funds: general, water, sewer, electric. Just as that's a ratio that we can make based on employees who are in the group and retirees who are in the group to those funds, and charge them, take the cash out of their reserves and then put it in the retirement fund. That's going to shore up your fund. That number, however, 1.74 million, is going to be augmented by a check that you're going to get sometime between now and October 1 for the claims experience that we had because of our stop loss. That check's going to be somewhere between $500,000 and $800,000. So based on what that check is, I'm going to ask to reduce that transfer by what we get paid back in our reinsurance. So we'll come back to that in a second too. So back to the data. 44% of all that exposure is coming from the retiree group. The retiree benefit provides a coverage. We provide that the law says we pay for it to a certain degree. Through this chart is showing where the gray color, there's a little bit of variance in here that runs from 1.3 to 1.5 to 1.4. That's your full-time employees and their dependent care, those claims. So those are kind of going up and down, but they're in a reasonable margin. But the margin that's growing is this retiree claims number the last 3 years, where we're hitting that peak. Not only do you have that, I threw in there too, these are high-cost claims. So the definition of a high-cost claim is any health insurance, you go to the doctor, you have a bill, and your bill to the doctor is $165,000 or more. Then we have the reinsurance number. So if you are a high-cost claim, it's actually 165 times 3 less a little bit of a deductible, because you have to get a claim of 165 or more 3 times, then the stop loss kicks in. So when you go back and you look at that number and then see we're still spending $1.2 million on high claims, now put those numbers together and why we got $8 million. Okay, so what do? The mitigation. Number one is we need to shore up the fund. So assuming everybody nods on that, next meeting, I'm going to bring you a resolution which puts this slide into a formal writing so that we can take action and we can manage the fund from now to the end of the fiscal year. And what we want to do is we want to get the healthcare fund to where you have about $2 million sitting in it come October 1. And then you mitigate that $2 million with the year's money that you're going to collect, which we're going to say needs to be about $7.5 million. We'll get to that chart in a minute. But we got to do more. So if you put the money in the fund, this chart goes from this number to the green bar. So you only need 1.2, but that only brings you to the recommended level. We were asking for an extra $500,000 because we don't know where the claims are going to be. And so we're bouncing between the claims of the last year of 6.8, 7.2, and 8 million. So somewhere in there, we don't think we're going to go over 8 million for a couple of reasons. One, some of our high-cost claims are not going to occur next year because of a passing and tripping the threshold of a Medicaid deductible. And again, that's a retiree issue in our early retiree program from 58 to 65, where we're feeling this pinch. So if some of those exposures we hope are gone, but that doesn't mean they're not going to repeat. So that's why we're taking a guess at what I didn't want to recommend a funding level of $8.2 million to you, because then you're talking for all the members of the pool to pay in significantly more and for the city to pay in significantly more. But we're at a level to where the next slide is going to show you it's getting expensive, and we're not going to have the cash around to be able to fix it unless you now continue to make the pattern of going into those operating reserves like we're doing potentially this year to fix the fund. So step number 2 is we got to change the plan rates. So the plan rates, we try to affect this the best we can to keep the health benefits reasonable for full-time employees and to keep payment contributions as low as possible. So in English, what does that mean? We compared our benefits as far as what employees contribute into the plan. The city on average is picking up 90% to 10% cost mix-ish, depending whether we got 4 different programs there, your employee only, employee spouse, employee child, or family plans, whatever that there's some mixes in there, but somewhere between 80 and 90, I think it's 80 and 92%, the city picks up that tab, the employee kicks in the rest. Believe it or not, that is an average benefit. Now, we have good benefit programs. We have low deductibles. We have an HMO plan that provides, or a PPO program that provides a better option as far as providers and those type of things versus our HMO provider. But that market-wise, when we look at our other local governments, we've got a reasonable pay-in and better benefits. So if we start modifying benefits, that's an option I'll talk about at the end. It doesn't help our situation because of these high claims exposures. So we try to put together a program over here. I made this chart so it would be relative to the bottom line of the commission. The bottom line of the commission is, what do you guys got to pay in to make the fund work? And so your increase per employee is $142 per employee per month. If you're an employee only and you're a full-time employee and you're not on any other plan, you're just employee only, your increase is 0. The retiree increase would actually go up $142. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then we modify the dependent programs with if you're employee, child, spouse, the city's contribution for the next is 0. So we're only going to increase our cost for the employee-only plan. And then if you're on a dependent care coverage, the employee has to pick up their costs at $1,371 for child, $1,504 for spouse, and $1,920 for family. That's for our PPO plan. So that's the high extreme. The HMO numbers are a little bit lower, but very similar. And then the retirees got to pick up the whole increase over the $400 they kick in. That plan is designed to keep that the plan was put in place to reflect our exposure and to increase our categories fairly. Third step. In short, I'm going to recommend to the commission that we're going to need to stop the early retirement benefit. The early retirement benefit is where we're seeing the most exposure. It's a benefit that had been promised employees for a long time. So by stopping this benefit, when we get through the budget process, We'll probably see challenges from the CBAs and complaints from general employees. I think that's something we'll have to go through. But here, let me give you the numbers and why this recommendation is being acted. As we said, we have about 1,025 people in our group. Of those 1,025, 1,100 are retirees and benefits. So now we got to break that number down because we actually have 4 plans. Did I say that wrong? We have 1,025 in the group. Of that 1,025, 111 are retirees and their dependents. We've got several retiree programs, but the lion's share of the programs that are affecting our claims are those employees that are 65 years and older. They have the option to take a monthly stipend of $400, which was a benefit that you approved long ago, and stay on our insurance versus go to Medicare at 65. We have 61 employees who do that. The next retiree program we have is if you're 65 and older, you opt out of our insurance coverage and you take the $400 a month to supplement your other insurances, whatever that may be. We have 27 of those. Those 27 do not affect our claims. They're out of our group and they receive $400 a month as a benefit to augment their retirement medical costs. The third group are ages 58 to 65 who retired early under the program that the city had prior to October 1, 2008. We have 23 of those employees. All of those employees receive $400 a month as a stipend and are on our insurance. That is the claims exposure. That's where most of our high-cost claims are affecting our group. That's why it's highlighted. So, by law, the city and the local governments must offer health care coverage to retirees. That means if you retire as a city employee, we have to offer you our group plan. Our group plan, as of this proposal, will cost $871 for an employee only. That doesn't mean we have to pay for it. That means we have to offer it. We do both. If you were employed with the city prior to October 1, 2008. The benefit for those 111 people cannot change. They're in a life raft. They passed under the bridge. The law says you cannot change the program for them. The law does let you change the program for those who haven't passed the finish line. So, back in 2001, 2008, kind of when the world stopped and we started running short of money, we changed the retirement program, we froze the retirement program, we took a lot of steps to mitigate our costs, and we said all those employees who were hired after this date, you don't get this deal. You get offered health insurance. So, I'm going to use me as an example. You hired me after October 1, 2008. When I retire with you, hopefully, if you don't get rid of me, or I don't leave you, when I retire, I would be eligible for your retirement benefit. That means if I want your insurance, I have to pay whatever that premium is. If you hired me before October 8th, then I would get the $400 stipend. That's the date. My recommendation to you is going to be for all full-time employees effective October or April 1, 2022 to stop the benefit, period. That means no longer will there be this benefit and your retirement exposure will now be limited to this group of 111 people, and that number should be dropping off.
How many,
Let me stop there and answer questions.
how many people are currently employed?
That's the next slide, Commissioner.
Okay.
let me, Commissioner Burr?
So is this an incentive then for them to remain employed?
That's the next slide too. So let's talk about the effects. Let me get your water here. Let's talk about the effects of what happens if you do this.
Before we get to that, just clarify for me, for the ones that we can't change, that we have, the ones on that slide, we're allowed to drop the $400 or no?
No.
No,
You
okay.
cannot change the deal.
At all, okay.
You cannot change the deal. Now, what we've done, and what we have done incrementally, is we've increased the cost.
Right, as the insurance goes
So-
up, it's just
so
still
like-
$400.
Yeah. Let me use trust round numbers. Fiscal year 21, it cost $700 for employee coverage. An employee who was a retiree who was on the plan got $400, and then instead of getting the $400, they gave us $300. So for them to get insured, it was $300. Next year, that employee, it'll cost $131 more, so they'll have to cut us the difference. Each time we've done that, we've lost 3 or 4 retirees who are over age 65, because then they go to Medicare. Okay, so for whatever reason, we've got 61 retirees who are eligible for Medicare who stay on our plan and do our supplement. Really, the plan, I think the intent of the plan is that when you're 65, you're on Medicare, and you get $400 from the city as a supplement to your health insurance for Plan B or whatever excess insurance you're going to get. That's where we want the plan to be. And I think as we make this change, and as we continue to increase the employee-only costs in a reasonable manner that's equal to all other categories, we'll start to see that happening, and then we'll start to see that it's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to put you in a better position than now, because the last 3 years you see what's going on. And I'm going to say that that's a claims experience. There's market and claims, because the healthcare market's crazy, right? And everything's crazy. But we're also, it's a compounded problem, because the market's crazy and your claims are crazy. So the law says for everybody who's crossed under the bridge, you can't change it. Unfortunately or fortunately, whatever side of the table you're sitting on, you can change it as long as you're dealing with everybody equally. So the recommendation is effective October 1, 2022, to stop the retiree benefit altogether, other than to offer it to employees who retire.
Now, before you go, I know you said that 61 wasn't a big exposure number for us. And do you feel that with the extra $100 that those 61 will move into the next category with the 27, or they'll keep paying us the extra 100?
Of the 61 who are in the 65 and older who get the $400 monthly stipend and are on our insurance coverage plan, my guess is you will see a handful of them drop out, because that's the trend.
Okay.
So what are the effects of this? Number one, so let's go back to this number, 111 retirees of the 1,025 in the group. So that leaves, I think, 9,011 employees and their dependents. Of that number, 166 of those 911 employees who still work for you are in that 58 and older category, who have the years of service to retire right now, who are eligible for the benefit. So if you say you're out, they should have opportunity to figure out what they do, because they're eligible for the benefit right now. So I would say, if you change this, you can't let that group of 69 go out the door. So 166 are potentially eligible. And I said that wrong. 166 are potentially eligible. Of that 166, 69 are eligible right now. So if you say stop the program, you need to give at least 69 people and whoever matriculate up some time to recalibrate what they're going to do. Do I retire and take my benefit? Do I say, nah, I'm not going to retire, I'm going to stay working? That's why the April 1 deadline. because that gives those folks not quite a year, and you got to do probably a formal action on this to change the plan, and the ordinance is going to come before you. That's where you'll get everybody coming in to tell you not to do it, or have their input to you on how you should move forward. But 69 employees are eligible for it right now. My suggestion is to give those folks and whoever, there's be a handful that'll pop in there, but April 1 becomes the magic date. That's why we picked that date. Second, again, that's what we talked about there. And then the recommendation significantly modifies your exposure. Let me stop there, and I'll recap. Because of the high claims exposure in the early retirement program from 58 to 65, I'm recommending that all employees effective April 1, 2022, not be eligible for the retirement benefit. That stops any benefit for a payment of retirement other than being offered the plan. 69 employees will be immediately affected. The rest potentially will lose a benefit. This will significantly help mitigate your claims. Questions?
On the 69L that qualify, what's the incentive for them to stay working for the city? I mean, if they retire, do they get full paycheck, or do they get less paycheck? I'm just trying to figure out, if you tell me I can quit right now and get my same paycheck, why would I continue to work?
Mayor, it's all over the place.
Okay.
Now, again, we kind of have 3 programs in there, so I'll give you these numbers. 42, we're talking about the 166.
Okay.
42 are 58 years and older and eligible to retire today with the benefit. 42 of that 166. 12 can fall into the Part C of the program where they're 52 years old, drop out, but when they're 58, they can come back. 15 are between 55 and 58, so when they hit 58, they'll kick in for the early retirement at 58. So you could have, so in English, what does that mean? You could have 42 walk out the door right now. You could have 12 walk out the door between 1 and 2 years. And you could have 15 walk out the door in 4 to 2 years. That leaves the remainder of folks who will just lose the benefit. So of the 166, that 69 is eligible one way or another. So the math is, what's that, 97? 97 lose a benefit and don't have a good option. So 69 folks have an option. A couple of those are over 65. Almost hurts us more than them unless they want to keep working. I almost anticipate losing them because there's no incentive to work unless they just want to work, which hopefully they would. That benefits us because good long-time employees. But then there's that handful that, yeah, it's 69 minus, there's that 97 that completely lose the benefit. They'll end up, their choices are, their choice, they're probably going to continue to work and have lost a benefit. Let me, before any more, I'm sorry, Commissioner. This is a hard recommendation to make. We've been struggling with it. You guys know, I know Commissioner Burry, Commissioner Connell, you're new. This commission's been struggling with decision for 2-3 budget cycles now, and we have kicked the can down the road trying to mitigate this. This becomes frustrating at CBA bargaining sessions because healthcare is a huge benefit, and from a management side, which I sit on, You know, I see where we spend and what we've done, and sometimes I don't think that's seen by the employee. I know we see it all the time because we're the shufflers of the deck and the shufflers of the money, and this is how we keep this going. And we've been able to do it really up until this year. This is the first time I know in my career, 25 years, where I'm actually recommending to the elected body to dip into your reserves to pay for health care. That's what you're doing this year. That number, I don't know. It's going to be, Brandy informed me today through HR that we're getting a stop-loss check of $500,000. That hasn't showed up yet. I think it was just cut. We did get it this afternoon, so we got it this afternoon. So I'll tell you right now, the $1.74 million number will automatically go down to $1.24 million. And where I'll short that money is what we take out of reserves. So hopefully we can whittle that number down but the problem that we have there is the timing of the stopgap insurance payments and the claims, they're just not lining up.
And next year, your stopgap insurance premiums are going to go up.
Next year, my stopgap insurance is going to go up. So I got you. So tough decision. This wasn't the only option. So the next slide says, look, we looked at a bunch of things, and our recommendation comes from these mitigation options that we examined. Number one, do nothing. I'm not recommending that you do nothing. Actually, nothing would probably be the next best option, okay? But it comes with the warnings. We can't afford to continue to use our cash reserves. We say we'll wait for a better cycle, we'll wait for a better cycle. I think a better cycle you're probably going to get. But if you don't change, you've got a 30-year exposure. The youngest person on that 166 list is actually 34. Okay, so 34 plus the retirement age plus that's 30 years of an exposure window. Now, it does get smaller, but that's 30 years of exposure you still got. So you can't wait for claims to get better. We've already absorbed a loss. So I did that. We've been doing this for 3 years, exclamation point. So when the union comes and yells at me about this, we'll pull out the charts at the table and say, look, this is what we've been paying. You guys, we haven't increased costs for that employee-only person for several years. That contribution has remained the same from the employee. And we can't, the $1 million, remember, we can't risk the work comp pool. I'm recommending that you grab that $1 million from work comp, but when we get to the work comp pool, that $1 million is going to put the work comp reserve below its recommended reserve. So I'm here kind of two-faced saying, take that cash because I don't want to take the reserve cash, but I'm also banking on the work comp claim exposure. You guys got the picture, right? So that's the safest, best bet to take it, to mitigate it. So we can't keep doing that. Year 3. Do nothing's not an option. We looked at modified plan. So is that change coverages? Do we do higher deductibles? Do we force you into a different network, take away PPO and change up the program? My suggestion on that is that does not help you. That does not help you because it doesn't help the common employee, because the person who's having a baby or whose your kid broke their leg, or you got a cold and you had to go to the doctor, or you had a normal health cataclysmic event. Now I'm just making now I'm helping you because if your wife gets pregnant, your cost to have the baby is your deductible. So whatever plan you're in, $2,500 or $5,000, that's all it costs to have a baby. If you increase that, so you increase in, now we got lower premiums, now you're hitting up that employee double. So what do we go to, $10,000 or $12,000 deductible? So now having a baby is double for that employee who's young, who's good to your pool, and you're hurting that employee when your exposure is over on the other equation. So if you change the benefits, you're getting whacked on everything above deductibles anyway, which is the high exposure. So changing plan composition sounds cool, but it's only going to hurt the common employee, which is 90% of the pool. So I don't think we want to do that. Split the baby. Keep it going for a little while. Keep the people who have gone under the bridge. Keep that plan, because you can't do it. The 166, deal with them one way or another, and then have a third class. You can't have these multiple classes. You can't keep exacerbating your problem. You got to keep your pool as fair and reasonable as possible. That's the legal advice. So it's have this plan or that plan. Don't split the baby, because then you make your plan more challengeable. Then you open yourself up to challenges. And then when you do that, not only do you open yourself up to that, you still have an upset employee, and you still haven't done as much mitigation as you can. So unfortunately, it's a rip the Band-Aid off approach. Split the baby doesn't help. Increased rates, we've done that. We're mitigating that every year. And then the fifth is stop the benefit. That's the rip the Band-Aid off. Fix it, move forward, stop your loss, and move on. So the options that we took were 4 and 5. Then we get into all the pool and all that money, which is kind of 50,000 foot. But the heartbeat of the healthcare presentation this year is to increase the rates as we show in this picture and stop the benefit for all employees effective October 1, 2022.
Can you increase the employee contribution a little bit? It's very good insurance.
Yes, you can.
I'm just asking if you can.
Yes, you
And
can
my other
increase.
question, I think I know the answer to my other question. You have to charge everybody the same premium, which makes no sense to me. The 25-year-old pays the same premium as the 65-year-old. Is that correct?
Yes.
I've never understood that one.
There's no change in premium. You have your class of premium: employee only, employee spouse, employee child, family. Those are your premiums. They have to be the same. So you can't change your premium. If you change your premium, you got to change them. We got to change them like we did. So we changed the premium based on where our exposure is. But whether you're 65 or whether you're 30, you're paying the same premium. That's the law. The next question you asked was increase the employee contribution. Yes, you can go back and get more money from the employees. I recommend that you don't do that because most of the employees aren't driving up our costs. We're already middle tier. That kind of started out the box with that. We're already middle tier. You can go to 3 or 4 other organizations in the region. Mount Dora. I got the chart. I didn't bring it with me. There's 3 or 4 other organizations in the regions where there is already a zero payment for employee. Public sector, where other public agencies don't charge anything. So I didn't want to do that. Now, I'm going to argue my benefits are better, so I'm charging you a little bit, but the other organizations, and then you get into the problem of if you're young, you're going to be like, I don't want to pay anymore. The better benefits aren't worth it to me because I'm not going to get sick because that's what everybody's sick. So then now your health, now I'm going to get people starting to leave. So I don't want to increase the premium to the employee. B, we're already market. And even if you do increase the premium to the employee, I'm looking to collect, I need 1 point some odd million bucks. Hitting my employee up for $50, $75 more dollars, only going to upset them and not get you enough money and not mitigate your loss.
On that line with the benefits, what are we paying per year for the health clinic? What are the actual hard costs there, roughly?
800 grand.
Right. So, I mean, and we got about 1,100 employees. So we're paying another $725 a year per employee for that, and which is a big benefit because they're avoiding their copays. If you're in Mount Dora, you're going to have to pay a copay every time you go to the doctor, and you don't here. So I know they're going to argue that they lower our claims, and I used to think that might be true, but the last 5 years of data says maybe that isn't the case. It's a great benefit, but I think that if we're going to continue to offer that, you have to look at that in comparison to it, because that's a real cost.
So let me give you this, this number, I don't have this. I tried to keep these slides high level because you can really get in the weeds on this and get confused easy. We spend $800,000 a year on the clinic. If I didn't spend the $800,000 a year on the clinic, my claims would be another $300,000 higher. So the math adds up. I don't, so don't try to do the math.
Okay, so 500,000. And I don't know that I buy the 300 because I think you actually would consume less healthcare because healthcare is a pain in the ass if you don't have that clinic.
At the clinic, I control my costs. I got my supplier. I got my doctor. I got my drugs.
Yeah.
Okay. So now the problem that we've had with the clinic is the service has been poor. So less people are going. So we watch that participation number. That participation number, I can give you a participation chart, but my participation this year is down, probably double digits, and I'm still saving that number. So what I need to do is I need to get people back to the clinic, which helps me again, and I need to get back to the clinic by yelling at We Care, hence the procurement process that we're in. And now We Care has their, Recare has their issues with, we had COVID, we did have some issues there with managing some of our poor employees. They have the same problem we do, hiring doctors and nurses and healthcare people. It's just like hiring police it's hard keeping people on board. So they've had their issues, COVID's complicated it, but we put them on notice and we're going out to bid. So hopefully in 22, my participation number is going to go back up.
But I think, yeah, and I think it's a great benefit, and I think it helps you with hiring, and I'm not suggesting getting rid of it, but if the numbers don't turn around, then I think that is a reason to have a slightly higher increase in the employee contribution because of that benefit. Not this year. The one thing that does bother me, though, is that we contribute less for the employees on the HMO than the PPO. And long term, I think you want to drive employees to the HMO. I agree that doesn't fix your problem, but long term, it is going to drive down cost if employees are on that program. And it's not a lot, but it's just kind of why would you pay more to incentivize employees to go to a higher cost plan? So I'd like to see that addressed. And then I think we need to continue. I think this year is a good start, but continue to contribute to keep the per employee contribution high and contribute less to dependents. Because you can just from a straight fairness, issue that, someone, if you've got a family and takes the city's health care, the city's paying you an extra $450 a month, and they're not paying, a single employee because you have a family. And, I think from a fairness standpoint, we got to lower that gap, and it's got to be over time because it's not fair to just hit everyone in 1 year, but I would like to see that narrow.
So I know you talked about Mount Dora. What are the other cities doing that are having to deal with this? I'm sure they got the same issues that we're dealing with. Have you talked to any of your?
I have not talked with any of my manager colleagues about this issue. We did do a recent survey that just kind of compared employee contribution.
Okay. And I know years we had, I think when Dan was here, he was our insurance like guru. Do we have someone or work with someone who just deals with insurance and the trends and what's happening? Do you think that will assist us in going forward? Do we need, I mean, I know you may be dealing with it, but you got a lot on your plate. Do we have someone that has that level of expertise?
Yes, is the answer. I don't think we need a full-time position like we did in the past. Right now, those responsibilities go to Jim Williams. Jim works with Maria on those issues, and then Scott Hyman from Brown & Brown. So that group, I think, it does a pretty good job. And I don't want to put Scott on the spot, but Scott worked with us closely, not in terms of making the recommendation, okay? That came from staff, so Scott's separate and apart from that. But Scott gave us the data, helped us interpret the data, walked us through with the healthcare, the health clinic, keep or not keep, go self-insured versus traditional trends, what to set the total budget at, and let me go to that slide because I know we've gotten lost in here. We're going off next year, and so at $7.5 million is what we're looking to collect all about. So let me go back to this chart where we started. So these are our claims numbers that go out, bing, 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 you know, all the, up to this fiscal year at 8 million, you know, again, based on where the stopgap insurance comes in, that number will get down. But next year, we're looking to collect 7.5 million. Hopefully next year, I'm here to tell you our claims was less than that, and then you put cash in the bank, and then we reevaluate with the mitigated program. So hopefully that number in the future goes up. Long story short, Mayor, I think we have a great team between Jim, Melissa, and Scott, and his folks at Brown & Brown, and we're putting our eyes on it and keeping a beat on it.
And I'm not, you know, in favor.
And actually, they do this more than me, so.
And I'm not in favor of just hiring someone, but if I'm gonna lose $1.3 million and I got an $80,000 employees can help me not lose 1.3 or have some creative ways. I know Scott's been in the game for a long time, but I think, you know, if every city in Florida or Central Florida is having the same issue, or they're not having, I think we need to kind of look and see what's happening, so we're not just sitting saying this is the best we can do. This is a tough pill when you're talking about being competitive with employees, retaining employees in this kind of environment. Healthcare is one of the main things that people look for because it can make or break your budget, your family, and your future. So I think we need to make sure that this is something, and we've talked about it for 2 or 3 years, how we can mitigate it. So it is decision time, if not this year, very soon. But I just want to make sure that we've exhausted every option, and we can't be the only city. And we're in a good position. I can only imagine a city that's not in the financial position we are in, how they would deal with this. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at every avenue before we really drop this bomb on our employees, because they have 69 employees decide I'm going to retire and they hit the city. We're going to be coming right back next year with a bigger issue, and then we're going to lose institutional knowledge of our city, good employees, forced out, and we're going to have to go try to hire people. And you can imagine what in the municipal world will be, don't go to Leesburg because this is how they treat their employees. So now we get subpar employees because we didn't handle the 69 or the 169 the correct way. So I just want to make sure that we are exhausting every avenue, every crook and nanny we've turned over to look to make sure that we've done all of our due diligence and exhausted every option. So, and I'm sure you've done that, but I would just want us to make sure that when we have to talk to employees and family members, that we as a commission can squarely say we've done everything that we can do.
Any other comments on health fund? And I'd like to wrap it up with this comment. So based on the questions and discussion we had here tonight, I'd like to come back with this recommendation in a two-pronged approach. You have to shift some cash. So on July 26th, we're going to come to you with the resolution that shifts that cash. And then at your first August meeting, we'll set up, whether it's resolution or ordinance, I'm not sure, we'll come back to you with that decision in August, which will get us time to give word out, talk to our employees, talk about it internally, so that then you can have the public discussion on it, and everybody will have their input to come to you for that public discussion.
If we
And we have a certain requirement as far as our CBAs, which was it 60 days? It's a 60 days notice, so we kind of have to have our decision in place. Is it 30 days? So by September 1, whichever way you go, even if you just increase the rates, the CBA say we got to give 30 days notice. So by September 1, we need to have the matter settled, one way or another.
If we wait until that meeting to transfer the funds, will we run out of cash?
No. What I'm going to ask you to do on the 26th is just to give me the discretion to shift the funds and the amount up to the numbers that I talked about tonight.
Yeah, I mean, my preference was that would happen at the same meeting we discussed this, because I think it's important that people understand that we're not just taking away this benefit because we're mean and we want to save a little bit of money. We're taking it away because if we don't, we're asking the other 20,000 citizens to spend $1 million every year for 100 people. And I think those are,
Well, it's $1 million a year for less than that, actually.
well,
I know
just
the
being
point.
generous,
Okay,
but-
and I don't, we'll move it up to we can do it both on the 26th. I was pushing that out a little bit just to give us some time to make sure we got everything written up right and get the word out, but word travels quick. The 26th is plenty of time. So we'll agendize both steps on the 26th. All right, so with healthcare, we go into the work comp pool. This was the gap that we show you. Work comp exposure has been reasonable. It works the same way, but instead of charging employees and blah, 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 we charge the departments. The departments have through a formulaic process can kick in, and then we pay the insurance bill or whatever claims. So the work comp pool has been hanging okay. This decrease represents the $1 million transfer. That's really the 20,000 foot approach to work comp. Any questions on work comp?
I mean, you're comfortable taking it down that low?
I think that's your best option. And yes, we're comfortable taking it that low. It comes with risk, but we think it's your best option. I'd rather take it
Your
from.
other option is what?
I'd rather take it from here than the general fund or the electric fund or one of your other funds, because if our experience continues at its current trend, that gap will fill pretty quick by what we kick into it on a regular basis.
How's our claims at? We don't have many claims, haven't had many claims.
No, we've been very good on the work comp side. The next one is the risk management pool. Frankly, I'm not sure that's transfer into pay bills. Pool? Property insurance. Okay, so right. Okay, so insure all the facilities of the city, $1 million. And then we go into fleet service. So those are the intergovernmental pools, and then I think we end with fleet services and round out the budget. So fleet services, again, this year we're asking for, what about one? We show you the same chart. We're asking for about $3.9 million. Well, no. Look, this chart is the best chart to show you. It's a $3.9 million fund, but we spend it this way. We fixing up vehicles is about $1 million. Paying folks to fix vehicles and buy vehicles is about $1.3 million. Okay, so this million is fixing up and paying people to fix stuff. 1.3 is the transfer, for a portion of the transfer for new vehicles through DST, and you know that because the county doesn't agree with us. So don't look at that number. And 1.5 million is new vehicles. Your new vehicle spreadsheet is this. And I'll read it aloud. It's 1 bucket truck, 1 aero board for the electric department, 2 gas trucks and a trencher, police, 1 SUV, and 9 other cars, 1 SUV for the fire department, 2 trucks and a mower for the water, 3 trucks and an ATV for wastewater, 1 truck for fleet. Solid waste is a new truck, 1 big, they're big trash picker-uppers. And recreation is a truck, all-terrain vehicle, and a tractor. I think those are pretty reasonable requests. And then we throw, you guys know the spaghetti chart, okay? And this is we've got all these wants and needs, and this is how much we kick in. This is the 80%. This is the 0%. We're going to run out of money in 24, and the department heads and everybody. This is actually the one fund where we do a really good job of saying we're going to run out of money. Let's kick the can down the road, and then we do. And this chart actually really has the history of ding, 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 which goes back to the discussion like we had a couple years ago where y'all yelled at me because Adrian Parker's car looked like hell. And you said, go fix that. But that's why we actually keep this, because there's a couple cars in the fleet that are really bad.
Now, why is the airport tractor not in here? Is it paid for differently
The tractor in,
for the airport?
yeah, I get, are we calling it new?
Yeah.
We're calling it new. So new, we take it out of your pocket, and then so that'll be in a capital expense down low, and then the next year, it'll be in the fleet line in operations. And then that's the depreciated number.
Some questions on the individual vehicles. The 2017 Explorer, why do we only get 4 years out of that? It's police.
So they use it for multiple shifts and they put high mileage on it.
Yeah, they get beat up, because the canines are shared,
Okay.
so it's not one officer, one car, it's the shifts, car, different dogs, in and out, lots of action, they get beat up.
In 8 years on the other cars, that's about what we expect to kind of get on a
Yeah,
car.
we're doing 8 years per officer.
Roughly, that's what that
It-
seems to be.
That seems long.
It's the way the mileage goes on those, but they kind of flows out that way. 8 years is on the high side.
Okay. And then in solid waste, the 2013 automated truck, that seems pretty new for equipment like that. Can't refurb those things?
Are we buying a new trash truck too soon?
So this one is a replacement, it's a replacement vehicle, so it's not the capital one, it's replacing one of the old ones.
I understand. Yeah, my question is 2013. It doesn't seem like the one we're replacing is that old, especially for heavy equipment like that. I believe in the past we refurbed some, and
We have, if it needs a rebuild, we can rebuild it, but I don't know what, I can look in and see how this graded out on the scale, but it goes by hours, usage, it's.
39 is the magic number.
So we inspect them annually to grade them out, and this is one of those ones that graded out, so.
okay.
Yeah, and so remember, so we do the rate chart, we've showed you this before, mileage, wear and tear, beats. So this truck it's a 20, where was that number? Just saw it. It is a 2013, so it's 7 going on 8 years old. The magic rate out number is if it's a 39 on other criteria, we want to trade it out. And then we push that down the road too, even if we got some 39s hanging around. This one's at a 70, so this one's just getting beat up.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's something that I think should, maybe we should look into. I just, into how they're, not whether we need to replace this, but what they're doing to this truck to get it in that bad of shape in that short of time.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about replacing $300,000 trucks every 7-8 years. That, to me, seems like we should be getting more life out of it. I mean, I know on our heavy trucks, I get like 20 years. And maybe you don't, I don't put quite the mileage on them that you are, but that still seems quick.
And that rounds out your fiscal year 22 budget. Any questions?
So Al, during the budget process, there were some questions that came up. Are you going to bring those questions back to us?
I will. There's some diversity questions in there. There was the matrix on the marina, where I would have brought those to you back there. The diversity question was a tough one. Let me explain why. Every other year, the EEOC office requires that we do a study of our overall employment, and that's broken down by position. Right now, today, I could hand you the demographics of the position, the city in general, and that number is going to look really super great. But I don't have it to you by position with the matrix. And so I don't want to hand you a document that says it looks really great and then come back to you and say, I'm weak because I don't have enough African-American supervisors, or I don't have enough female supervisors, or what have you. So I want to break that number down in the chart form that EEOC wants. I should have that to you probably in a couple more weeks. I think we're going to come out okay on that, but I don't want to hand you half information.
What about the training, funding for training?
That one too. So the training, we've got those down, and I'll get those back to you at one of your regular meetings before September.
And I know we talked about the CRA budget with the, I think it's 147,000 we had for the teen center.
Yep,
So you got all that documented.
yep.
All right. Any other? All right. Any public comment before we go home tonight? All right. Motion to adjourn?